Shalom Aleichem, how are you? We're starting now the second Kuntres in the series on the Mitzvah of Kiddush. I hope you have it. From the Beis Medrash Gavoa in Lakewood. The organization is called Shifty. And by way of introduction, the question here is whether or not the requirement of Yayin for Kiddush is DeOraisa. And if it is, which might have implications as far as, let's say, a Nazir, whether he could drink and is obligated to drink the wine of Kiddush, it will also have repercussions in terms of Pas. Can you make Kiddush on Pas? The Gemara seems to indicate that in Psach and Daf Kuvav, as we'll see, that you have two options for Kiddush, either Yayin or Pas. And the obvious question is, well, if Yayin is DeOraisa, then how could you make Kiddush ala Pas? But I want to change the order here a little bit. And we're going to look on page Lamed Beis, Keminyan Lev, with a piece from the Mishnah Brura. And this Mishnah Brura is at the beginning of the laws of Kiddush, which in the Shulchan Aruch is in Siman Reish Ayin Aleph. And the Mechaber says that women are obligated in the Mitzvah of Kiddush, even though it's a Mitzvah Seishas Man Groma, because of the Hekesh of Zacha L'Shama. That means since women are included in Shmira, therefore they're included in Zechira. And the Mishnah Brura presents the Rambam in Perek Chav Tes Halacha Aleph of Hilchos Shabbos. Mitzvah Saseh Min HaTorah L'Kadish Es Yom HaShabbos B'Dvarim. Now, in my edition of the Mishnah Brura, it's on page 90. In case you don't have the Kuntres number 2, you can take out a Mishnah Brura and find it. It'll be the third volume of the Mishnah Brura. And the Rambam quotes the pasuk Zachar es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho, and he says that the Mitzvah Min HaTorah L'Kadish es Yom HaShabbos B'Dvarim. And the Rambam, I think, with the word Dvarim, is coming to exclude something less than Dvarim and something more than Dvarim. What do I mean? Less than Dvarim would be Hirhur, and the Rambam would reject the possibility that we could activate the famous principle of Hirhur Kedibur with regard to Kiddush. The Torah requires Dvarim, Dibur, Dvarim. And thought would not be enough. In the first Kuntres, we studied one of the Achronim who seemed to assume, which was a Pella, that you could be Yotzei Kiddush DeOraisa with Hirhur. And he built himself on the word Zachar, that Zachar is always believed. But the Rambam is outspoken, you require Kiddush B'Dvarim. Then the Rambam is excluding something higher than Kiddush B'Dvarim, meaning something additional, and that's Yain. The Rambam says that Mitzvah Saseh Min HaTorah L'Kadish Es Yom HaShabbos B'Dvarim. And there's no need for Yain. We'll see that in the Rambam himself. The entire requirement of Yayin for Kiddush, according to the Rambam and most Rishonim, is the Rabbanim. The Rambam says, Klomar Zachreu Zechiras Shevach V'Kiddush. That's in Halacha Aleph. And then if you fast forward to Halacha Vav, Umidivrei Sofrim, Shetehei Zechira Zu Al Kol Shel Yain. Clearly then, the Rambam is making a distinction between Kiddush DeOraisa and Kiddush according to the Divrei Sofrim. Whereas Kiddush DeOraisa is just Dvarim. To be Yotzei Kiddush Midivrei Sofrim, you need Yain. And the Mishnah Brura points out that Tosfos consistently reflects the same view as the Rambam, both in Sukkah and in Masechta Nazir. So this is the sheet of many, many Rishonim that Kiddush min Torah does not require yain. Today, Amir Hashem, we're going to be studying earlier in this kuntris many Rishonim who say that Kiddush al yain is DeOraisa and the Torah itself requires yain. I mean, the obvious problem to that is where does the Torah require yain? But be that as it may, we'll get to that later on. So the Mishnah Berurah summarizes that Shita Rishonim of the Rambam and Tosfos, the al yain hu rak midrabanan. Now, having established that according to this Shita in Rishonim, and right now the Mishnah Berurah does not even make reference to any other Shita that would require Yayin min Torah, but rather that Yayin is only midrabanan, now he's ready to ask the question, do we actually fulfill Kiddush DeOraisa befall, in actuality, in our lives, on a weekly basis, every Shabbos, without Yayin? Meaning, do we split Kiddush into two? Once you have a mitzvah that has a DeOraisa requirement and an additional requirement d'Rabbanan, then the question begs itself, can you split between the two? And the Mishnah Berurah quotes the Magen Avraham to prove that indeed every Friday night we split between the two. We actually make Kiddush not once, but twice. Once to fulfill the DeOraisa, and a second time to fulfill the d'Rabbanan. How so? Kosim Magen Avraham, to lefize, midoraisa b'kiddush ha'omer b'tefila sagi. You have fulfilled sufficiently your mitzvah d'oraisa of Kiddush, of Zochras Yom HaShabbos l'kadshu kadshei b'dvarim, in tefillah, on Friday night, in davening. Dikra ksiv, Zochras Yom HaShabbos, farei Zochar also. We mentioned the Shabbos in Kiddush. We mentioned the Shabbos in tefillah, and therefore we fulfill our mitzvah d'oraisa. Tefillah is in the Beis HaKnesses. Certainly, we are not talking about a makom suda unless you sleep in the Beis Knesses. And in fact, there was, back in the time of Chazal, a guest house, so to speak. I don't mean that literally, but in the Beis HaKnesses, and therefore they made Kiddush in the Beis HaKnesses in honor of the guests, because for them it was called a makom su'uda. Today, it's very rare to see people sleeping in being hosted in the synagogue. Some still retain this minhag. In my father's shul, up until a certain point in my youth, my father was manig that minhag, that they recited Kiddush in shul. They always had a child drink the wine like you do, during the 9 days. Because l'chora, that Kiddush has to require yayin, but yet you require makom suda, and it's not a makom suda. So maybe the child's drinking the wine makes it into a makom suda. I don't know. But in any event, the Magen Avraham's chiddush here is of stupendous importance. It means that according to Magen Avraham, on a weekly basis, we fulfill every Friday night 2 different maisi of Kiddush. There's a maisi Kiddush d'Oraisa, to fulfill Zochras Yom HaShabbos l'kadsho Zochrei b'zchiras dvarim, and that's in Ma'ariv. And then in addition, we have a Kiddush d'Rabbanan when we get to the Makom Suda and we recite Kiddush al Yayin. And he not only champions and waves the flag of the Magen Avraham, but the Mishnah Berurah beyond that says that Hevi Magen Avraham Raya L'Zeh Gemara. You really read this Mishnah Berurah, and you are absolutely convinced that according to the Mishnah Berurah, you can be Yotzei Kiddush d'Oraisa and Tefillah, and d'Rabbanan when you get home and you recite Kiddush al Yayin b'makom Suda. And there's a raya from the Gemara. Now, up until this point is a quote from the Magen Avraham. From here on in, the Mishnah Berurah is commenting on the Magen Avraham. And he derives the following nafkamina from the Magen Avraham. You might ask, what difference does it make whether I fulfill 2 in 1 or 1 and another 1? Who cares? Okay, so you're telling me, yeah, the aspect and the obligation to DeOraisa, I was Yotzei in Tefillah. And then I get home and I'm Yotzei b'divrei sofrim, the D'Rabbanan requirement of Kiddush b'makom suda with a kosher yain. Fine. Do I have to know that? Is it of halachic significance? Is there an afkamina? Supposing I walk around with the mistaken impression that I was Yotzei both in 1, 2 in 1, and Kiddush, DeOraisa, D'Rabbanan are both piggybacked on one shoulder, and therefore on Friday night when I get home from shul, I'm Yotzei both DeOraisa and D'Rabbanan. Vos art mir, as we say. Why do I have to know that I split my mitzvah of Kiddush into 2 parts? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Al Kain, im safek lo, im kiddush olo. Imagine the following scenario. You know, it could happen. It's a kind of rare, but I don't remember, did I recite Kiddush or not? You know, some people, I saw it in Toronto, by the way, and I'm going to tell you off the record, it's not oiskal, it's not right. But some people, when they come up from shul, they sit in the, they have like a, I don't know, we'll call it a parlor room, you know, some sort of like a den, and everybody sits around, the family, you know, I don't know what they do. They talk about politics. I don't know chas v'shalom politics, but you know what I'm saying. They take their time until they get to Kiddush, and you know they got so involved in conversation, and somebody all of a sudden pipes up and says, "Hey, we got to make Kiddush." He said, "We already made Kiddush." He forgot, but did he make Kiddush? Did he not make Kiddush? Ain't sarach lachzor l'kaddish. This fake it D'Rabbanan l'kula. The Mishnah Berurah invokes a prima gadim who says that if you don't remember whether or not you said Kiddush, again, it's hard to believe, but, you know, people get older, they have slight dementia. You know, say, I don't want to go into details. It's too close to home, you know, say, but, you know, they forget, did I make Kiddush, did I not? Safek D'Rabbanan l'kula. And by the way, there's a clear-cut reason why, to use Rav Weber Shlita's phrase, Sabal would not apply. I only heard that phrase from Rav Weber. I heard it from him dozens of times in my stay in Clanton Park. And Sabal is Rashi Tefes for Safek Brachas Lahakel. That would have no relevance here. Please don't even let that cross your mind, because Kiddush is DeOraisa. And in Kiddush DeOraisa, we don't apply the principle of Safek Brachos Lahakel. Just like we don't apply it to Birkas HaMazon or to Birkas HaTorah, Safek Brachos Lahakel is not relevant here. But I can apply a different principle, says the Prima Gadim, and that's Safek D'Rabbanan l'kula, because I was already Yotzei with my Kiddush and Tefillah. So I fulfilled my obligation. I discharged my duty as far as the Torah is concerned. Now I have a Chiv D'Rabbanan. I don't remember, did I make Kiddush? Did I not make Kiddush? And Safek D'Rabbanan l'kula. Says the Mishnah Berurah, I have another nafkamina. Now again, this is sort of hard to believe as well, but you know, in our generation, we like to teach the children. And of course, the mitzvah of chinuch is a paramount mitzvah, but sometimes we go a little bit too far. And we ask a child to make Kiddush for us. Sounds like a beautiful minhag, right? Technical foul. It's not a good idea. How do they say it in hockey? This is from football. In hockey, they have a different... anyway, got to realize I'm talking to Canadians here. They don't know anything about football. All they know is hockey. I used to learn with one of the guys in Clanton Park. He couldn't learn with me on Sundays because he had to take his boy for hockey practice. I said to him, so what are you talking about? Your son is 6 years old. Anyway, so that what we have here is a serious problem if a katan is going to make Kiddush. Because a katan who's chayav in Kiddush d'Rabbanan, if he's igil l'idei chinuch, is only a chad d'Rabbanan, and now we have a gadol who's chayav midoraisa. And a katan is a la bar chiyuva. Says the Mishnah Berurah, I have a chap for you. Let the katan recite Kiddush on Friday night, and let him be motzi a gadol. How could it be? The gadol is chayav DeOraisa. Says the Mishnah Berurah name. The gadol is only chayav d'Rabbanan because he fulfilled his chayav DeOraisa and tefillah. Let's read it inside. Otherwise, you'll think I wrote the text. He says, Gam de katan shegiel lechinuch yochel lahotzi lefi ze afilu gadol b'kiddush im gadol ispal kvar. Period. So let's just summarize two nafkaminas to this Magen Avraham. Magen Avraham says that Kiddush DeOraisa is Kiddush b'dvarim without Makom Suda, without Yayin, and there are two nafkaminas. After Tefillah, we downgrade his chiyuv from a DeOraisa to a d'Rabbanan. Therefore, if he has a suffix, whether or not he recited Kiddush, the suffix d'Rabbanan l'kula. Number two, a katan shegiel lechinuch is now on the same level of chiyuv as the gadol. Why? Because the gadol dab ma'ariv. He already fulfilled his mitzvah d'Oraisa. He's now chayav midrabbanan. The katan is chayav midrabbanan mitzad chinuch, and he can be motzi a gadol. And the next word in the Mishnah Berurah is ve'ulam. However, when you see the word ve'ulam in the Mishnah Berurah, get ready for the worst. Because from the word ve'ulam and on, the Mishnah Berurah just throws it all out. And in my mind, this is a pella. You know, the Mishnah Berurah for the last 15 lines has convinced us that he accepts the Magen Avraham, hook, line, and sinker, and that you could be Yotzei Yochiv DeOraisa of Kiddush in Tefillah. There's not even an inkling, not even a blink of a suffix in the minds of the Mishnah Berurah and his Talmidim, that having presented the Rambam and Tosfos, both of whom agree that Kiddush requires Kiddush Dvarim, Divrei Shevach, Divrei Kiddush, without Yayin, he has fulfilled his mitzvah on a DeOraisa level in Tefillah. There's no Yayin, there's no Makom Suda. Who needs it? It's Kiddush B'Dvarim. And then all of a sudden, Ulam. You would never see this in the Chai Adam. You know, before the Mishnah Berurah, there was life on this planet before the Mishnah Berurah, even for Ashkenazim. It's hard to believe. But that was the Chai Adam. For Hungarians, okay, I see Bobby is here, so we have to mention the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch of Granzweig. Okay, fine. So you'll learn the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. But you will never see, neither in the Chai Adam nor in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, what you're going to see here, that presenting a shita with all the implications, all the ramifications, the nafkaminas, and then ulam. Only a Rosh Hashiva speaks that language. And in fact, the Chafetz Chaim was a Rosh Hashiva. Ulam says to Mishnah Berurah, hold your horses for a moment. Yesh lefakvik b'zeh. Harbe. I have serious doubts, says the Mishnah Berurah. The only problem I have is why didn't he start the Mishnah Berurah from here? You know. But anyway, yesh lefakvik b'zeh. And the Mishnah Berurah now is going to turn the tables around the other way. He was not Yotzei in Tefillah. He's chayav midoraisa when he comes home to make Kiddush. If he has a suffix whether he made Kiddush or not, he'll repeat Kiddush. If he has a katan at the table, he will not allow the katan to recite Kiddush. Why? Because he's chayav d'Oraisa. So what happened to the Magen Avraham? Where did it go out the window? Did you see it? I got a nice window here. That's where I hear all the planes going to Gaza. You know. He says, Ulam yesh lefakvik was harbe. The kaimelon, the mitzvahs tzrichas kavon. Now, whether or not mitzvah tzrichas kavon or not, vesachnish, I don't know. But the poskim assume that in a mitzvah DeOraisa, we require kavon. I don't know what they do with the Rambam who says that in shofar, even if you blow shofar for its musical content, you're yotzei the mitzvah. But if you look in the Rambam, for example, Hilchos Kriyat Shema, there he requires kavanah. There are many, many different approaches. The Rambam in Hilchos Matzah seems to assume that even if you didn't have kavanah to eat the matzah, you were yotzei the matzah. But for some reason or another, again, this is not for us. We'd have to give a 2-hour shir on this. The poskim assume halacha mitzvah tzrichas kavanah when it comes to a mitzvah DeOraisa. The Rabbanan is a different story. But we're talking about a mitzvah DeOraisa, Zokris, Yom Shabbos, and Kachar. You need kavanah, says the Mishnah Berurah. Lotzeis ba'asiyas hamitzvah. So, in Hasidic circles, before a mitzvah, you say, Hineni muchan u'mezumah. You remember that? You'll see it printed in the Siddur. No, the Yehuda was opposed to it, especially in the case of a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. But we're talking about a mitzvah d'Oraisa, so maybe even the Noda Yehuda would agree that we should add before tefillah a little hineni muchan u'mezumah. But we don't have such a hineni muchan u'mezumah. And therefore, did he have kavanah when he davened Ma'ariv on Friday night to be yotzei the mitzvah of Kiddush? If I were to ask you, before you saw the Magen Avraham, now you're all scholars, would you be yotzei the mitzvah of tefillah and have kavanah as such during davening? If I were to tap you on the back before Ma'ariv, I can't do it in the middle of Shmona Esrei because it can't be mafsik. But before Ma'ariv, I'm going to say to you, what mitzvah are you about to fulfill? Kiddush, Zachar, Yom Shabbos, and Kacha. The Heres Lamaisa, who would say such a thing? I'm about to fulfill the mitzvah of Yavadatem es Hashem Elokeichem b'chol avavchem. Ezi mitzvah sheboleh, avodah sheboleh, v'zui tefillah. I don't have in mind the mitzvah of Kiddush. So that the Mishnah Berurah is telling us that the Magen Avraham is theoretical, but it's not practical. It's not real. It's not actual. Yeah, you could have kavanah and tefillah to be yotzei Kiddush. Mishnah Berurah is not doubting that. But did you have kavanah? I didn't hear you say hinei muchan u'mezumah. Umistama ein miderech ha'olam lechavein lotzeis es hamitzvah say the zachar b'tefillah. Which Lamdan has in mind to fulfill the mitzvah d'Oraisa of Kiddush in tefillah? What percentage of the populace knows enough, is enough a scholar that he learned the Rambam at the beginning of Perchav Tes Milchas Shabbos, and he learned the Magen Avraham in Reish Ayin Al, and he came to the conclusion that he could be yotzei the mitzvah of Kiddush d'Oraisa in tefillah, and he went ahead and he had kavanah to be yotzei. What percentage of the populace could fit that description? Mistama ein miderech ha'olam lechavein lotzeis es hamitzvos aseh d'zachar l'tefillah.
But all that means is that the Olam did not accept the Rambam and the Ramah.
I wouldn't say it that way. I think, Bobby, you're giving a lot of credit to the Olam. You're saying that they could have accepted the Rambam and the Magen Avraham, but they didn't accept it. I'll say it like it is. The Olam is a golem. You're familiar with that phrase?
Yeah, I don't think that's fair. In other words, if we had been taught,
the populace.
Exactly, if we had been taught that you should be yotzei Kiddush in Shemona Esrei, I would have kavanah to be yotzei in Shemona Esrei. It's just that we're not taught to do that way.
No, but I'm asking you, Barry, if you're not taught, Bobby, I'm sorry, if you're not taught to do so, is it amaratzis? I don't mean it to insult anybody, but I'm just saying, is it that you're lacking the idea? I want to know something, Bobby. This Friday night, Haba Lenu Litova, where we were holding Yom Revi'i, Chavishi, Shishi, 2 more dates, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, here on our clock, it's a little bit more than 48 hours. So on your clock, we'll add another couple of 7 hours. But what are you going to do? Bobby Silverstein, I want to know what you're going to do this Friday night.
I'm not going to be Yitzin. I'm not going to have Kavanah
Why
be
not?
Yitzin now.
Why not?
Because that's not how Rabbi Burzon taught me.
I'm
That's
going
not
to
how my
teach you
Rebbein
now.
taught me.
Right
My
now, I'm
Rebbein
going to
taught
teach
me.
you what the Mishnah Berurah teaches me.
So maybe I
The
have to
Magen
change.
Avraham.
Maybe I have to change.
Do you agree with me that we have a principle in mitzvahs called Zrizim Makdimim LeMitzvahs?
Yes.
So I give you 2 choices. You could be Yotzei of Mitzvah DeOraisa now at time T1. You're going to get to your house an hour from now. You have a long walk in the snow on, what's the name of that street there? I forget the
Laurel Crest.
Laurel Crest, right? Laurel Crest. The Heilige Laurel Crest. So when are you going to be mekavin to the mitzvah? Are you going to give up on an opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah DeOraisa an hour earlier? The Magen Avraham is, keep in mind, the Mishnah Berurah is not rejecting the Magen Avraham. He's saying Mistama, if I have to make a little bit of a census here, and I took every Jew in the Heilige, city of Toronto or in the whole world, and I asked them, hey, did you know about the Magen Avraham? Oh, I never knew about the Magen Avraham. Nobody taught me. Why didn't they teach me that I could be Yotzei Mitzvah DeOraisa in Kiddush? of Kiddush.
Not only that, they teach you the opposite. They teach you don't have Kavanah.
Bobby, give me a second here. Joe, you wanted to say something. I'm trying, in the Zoom, it's like complicated.
No, it's okay. Barry always talks, whatever he's, but that's okay. I just want to ask the Rav if nobody says that there's a question of you have to use dibur, that in Shemona Esrei you're not saying it out loud, that maybe that's not considered dibur.
Wait a minute. In tefillah, you should be saying it out loud. You want to ask another question? Could I be yotzei in tefillah b'lachash without even in kriyat shema? It's machlokas tanoim. How do you learn the word shema? Hashmel yoznecha, mash yotzei mepicha, blah blah blah. The whole sugya there.
Right.
So it could be that in tefillah, maybe. The truth is, though, Joe, halacha l'maisa in poskim, you should be reciting tefillah out loud. What do I mean out loud? Not loud enough that the guy standing next to you in shul can't concentrate.
I understand.
I've been in situations like that, by the way, and I get completely flustered by it. I don't even know where I'm holding because he's in a different part of Shemona Esrei. On the Yomim Noraim, by the way, during Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, the poskim have a big kula, and they say you're allowed to actually daven out loud, so somebody next to you would hear you. I would get rid of that halacha if it was up to me. I find it very disconcerting when he speaks out loud, but I'm just saying the following. If I would stop here in the Mishnah Berurah, when you teach something, pedagogically, it's always worthwhile to stop at certain points and sort of sum up where you're holding. Because that'll appreciate the next line. Do you follow what I mean? So I stopped deliberately. The Chafetz Chaim, if he was here, would get angry at me. He would say, Burzon, you interjected in the middle of my sentence. Let me finish my sentence. Because I read the Mishnah Berurah and I saw that Mistama Ein Dercha Olam means that, like Bobby said before, you never taught me. Who taught you the Magen Avraham that you could be Yotzei your DeOraisa already in Tefillah? Nobody taught me that. So Mistama Ein Dercha Olam. You follow what I mean by Dercha Olam? But if you'd ask me, what am I going to do next Friday night? I'm not going to do it the way the Mistama Derech Olam. No, I'm going to have Kavanah to be Yotzei because Zrizim Makdimim LeMitzvahs. But now let's read the next line in the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Kevan sheyesh lo yayin o pas. Right, we're not discussing a case of someone who never has no yayin, no pas. When is he going to be Yotzei's mitzvah of Kiddush? Everybody? He has no yayin, he has no pas. When will he fulfill
Shemona Esrei.
And we're certainly going to advocate that he has kavanah tefillah. He doesn't have another option. The only mitzvah of Kiddush that he can salvage for himself is Kiddush DeOraisa. But Kevan sheyesh lo yayin pas, Baruch Hashem, he has yayin and pas. He has two alternatives for Kiddush. V'yochel l'kadish aleim achar kach, bibracha, kiddin. Whoa. Did you feel the ground below you shaking when I said the word kiddin? Do you know what the Mishnah Berurah is saying now? Don't be yotzei with tefillah. No, that's not kiddin. We want you to be yotzei kiddin. The right way. Do it the right way. V'tov yoser sheyetze oz. Oz means when he gets home and he has yayin makom suda, ha-mitzvah say DeOraisa, misha yetze ata, now during tefillah. Below kos, below makom suda. Listen to what the Mishnah Berurah is telling me now. And you explain it to me. You have two options. You can be yotzei the Kiddush DeOraisa in shul, in tefillah, come home and make Kiddush al yain or pas. That's one possibility. Alternatively, no. Don't have kavanah to be yotzei in tefillah. Take the entire enterprise of Kiddush and pile it, piggyback one on top of the other, and kill two birds with one stone. And when you get home, you fulfill the mitzvahs aseh DeOraisa of Kiddush, but do it al yain. When you have Kiddush Kiddin, and you fulfill not only the DeOraisa, but also the Rabbanan. Why? Rebbeinu Shalom. The ground screams out. Why? Why is it not Kiddin to be yotzei with Kiddush in Tefillah, and then after I fulfilled and discharged my duty DeOraisa, I come home and I fulfill my mitzvah Rabbanan of Kiddush al yain? Why not? Was ist schlecht? So Abosai, I think what the Mishnah Berurah has in mind, if I could say so, again, maybe it's a chutzpah on my part. I'm hoping that Yudi will tell me my Rebbe said it also, so that'll give me a good feeling. That there are two categories of a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. One category of mitzvah d'Rabbanan is what I call yesh me'ayin. D'Rabbanan invent and create a new mitzvah. Example, what month are we in now? I don't know. I'm not interested in Thanksgiving in America. What month are we in now? Can you whisper it a little bit louder? Kislev, right?
Kislev.
Last time I checked, we're in Kislev. Okay, so give me an example of a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, which is an entity unto itself.
Hanukkah.
They're Hanukkah. Fast forward to, Adar Sheni in this case, the mitzvah of Megillah. We have mitzvahs that are self-contained, original, independent entities that are all d'Rabbanan, from A to Z, from soup to nuts. And then we have a different category of a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. It's not that the Rabbanan come from nowhere with a new mitzvah that they're revealing. They're unveiling a new mitzvah. Today is my mother-in-law's unveiling. I should be in New York now with my wife, but okay, whatever, I decided to stay here. You unveil a new mitzvah. Chanukah, possibly Megillas Esther, possibly Netilas Yadayim, Eruvin, maybe whatever examples, there are many. No. There's a mitzvah d'Oraisa, and here I got to be very sensitive with my choice of words, because I don't want to say something that I'll regret. But the mitzvah d'Oraisa itself, shall we say, is ambiguous. Hashem should forgive me for saying it. It's amorphous, it's undefined. The Rabbanan step up to the plate, to use an American phrase, and they tell you, they define the mitzvah d'Oraisa. They tell you how to fulfill the mitzvah d'Oraisa. And the nafkamina is going to be the following: that if the Rabbanan are defining the mitzvah DeOraisa, then although you could be Yotzei without fulfilling the rabbinic requirements, the best way of doing the mitzvah is to do the mitzvah with and fulfilling the Rabbanan, the requirements of the Rabbanan. Because the Rabbanan are, shall I say, enhancing the mitzvah, defining the mitzvah. And therefore the Mishnah Berurah says that Kiddush ala Yayid is not a new entity. It's not a second Kiddush. It's not that the Rabbanan said, in addition to Kiddush DeOraisa, which we Yotzei and Tefillah, we're going to give you another mitzvah of Kiddush. Get two for the price of one. No. It's all one mitzvah. And if you want to fulfill that mitzvah Kiddin in the right way, then you will not be splitting the mitzvah into two, like a schizophrenic, a two-headed monster. You will fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush not in Tefillah, but rather ala kos b'makom suda, and then you have both the DeOraisa and the way that the Rabbanan wants you to fulfill that DeOraisa as one entity, one Maaseh mitzvah. Whole nother pshat. This is not mistama ein derech ha'olam lechavin lotzes. This is not a mistama that's based on an ignorance, as Bobby said before, because nobody taught me, the Magen Avram, that you could be Yotzei Kiddush DeOraisa during Tefillah. No, that's not what it's all about. If that's what it was all about, then this Friday night, I would recommend that you be Yotzei the mitzvah of Tefillah, the mitzvah of Kiddush DeOraisa and Tefillah. No. I'm going to say no, says the Mishnah Berurah. I'm going to vote against it. Why? Because the Rabbanan are telling you this is the perfect mitzvah to recite Kiddush ala yayin b'makom suda and fulfill the DeOraisa in the way the Rabbanan wants you to fulfill the DeOraisa. You have no yayin, you have no pas, you have no option of doing it the way the Rabbanan did it. The Rabbanan are not going to say, okay, the deal is off, you aren't mekayim your mitzvah DeOraisa. No. In that case, have kavanah by all means to be yotzei the mitzvah of Kiddush of Zochus Yom Shabbos Akadsho in Tefillah. But if you have yayin, if you have pas, and you have the opportunity to combine, to collapse the mitzvah DeOraisa of Kiddush together with the mitzvah D'Rabbanan, that's the way to go. And forget about Zriza Makdimul mitzvahs. It's not going to apply here. I'm not going to say, well, wait a minute, you had an opportunity already in shul and davening to fulfill your mitzvah DeOraisa. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to tell you, wait until you get home, Makom Suda, and then be Yotzi a mitzvah DeOraisa in the way the Rabbanan prescribed the mitzvah of Kiddush. The od kama taimim acherim. Very ambiguous line in the Mishnah Berurah. He sort of implies that there are secret reasons that he should not be Yotzei Kiddush in Tefillah, but wait till he gets home. He's not revealing his cards. I believe, and that's the subject of today's shir, which I want to go back to the beginning of this kunsh, but I thought that this Mishnah Berurah would be a great introduction, that what the Mishnah Berurah has in mind is an entire school of Rishonim, a school of Rishonim. I'm not talking about one far-flung Rishon, that maintain that Kiddush ala Yayin is DeOraisa. And we have to be choshesh for that sheet. And therefore, when you come home and recite Kiddush ala Yayin b'makom sudi, you are fulfilling the mitzvah DeOraisa of Kiddush. We're not going to allow a katan to be motzi you in Kiddush. And if it's a suffix, we're going to say suffix l'chumra. So there are two reasons why Safek DeOraisa L'chumra is going to apply in a case where he forgot whether or not he recited Kiddush. He had an amnesic attack. One reason is because we don't want him to have kavanah during tefillah. And mitzvah strichas kavanah, he doesn't have kavanah in tefillah to be yotzei the mitzvah of Kiddush DeOraisa. Therefore, his chiyuv Kiddush alakos, when he comes home, is DeOraisa, Safek DeOraisa L'chumra. You don't remember whether you recited Kiddush? Don't tell me whether you yotzei DeOraisa in tefillah. Did you say hineni muchan or mezuman? For sure not. And not just because they never taught it to you, but because that's not the way to do it. And secondly, there are many shittas and rishonim that Kiddush al yayin is DeOraisa. And therefore you are not yotzei tefillah, Kiddush and tefillah. Safek DeOraisa l'chumra. But again, just to see the structure of the Mishnah Berurah, that he feeds you, in a sense, the wrong information. You know what I'm saying? Like up into the word ulam, there was never a doubt in anyone's mind that the Mishnah Berurah was teaching me that you were yotzei the mitzvah of Kiddush DeOraisa and tefillah. That's it. End of story. We'll say goodbye to Bruce now. And all of a sudden, the Mishnah Berurah says ulam, and the whole tower above falls apart in front of our eyes. And therefore, the two nafkaminas that the Mishnah Berurah had formulated, based on the Magen Avram, fall by the wayside. Therefore, he says, "Al kaid yesh limnoa milotzes yidei kiddush al yidei katan." With all due respect, you want to give a katan a good feeling, let him be motzias and kiddush. It's to be avoided. You know, you're going to come home and have a child recite Kiddush for you. It's going to give you the feeling that that you don't even need yayin over there. Just hear the child. Let's not play games here. True, technically, he could feed you the word of word by word Kiddush, and you'll repeat after him. My father used to call that responsive reading. I don't know if you remember that from the modern Orthodox shuls. But Vidah, he says at the end, the Kiddush shel Yontif hu midrabanan, mikol makom yesh lo kol din Kiddush shel Shabbos. But you know what? If Kiddush is only D'Rabbanan, and on Yontif you have a suffix, whether or not you cited Kiddush, then we're going to say suffix D'Rabbanan L'Kula. You have a Katan. No, then we're going to get into a different issue of trade D'Rabbanan, but let's avoid that. Kiddush on Yontif is only D'Rabbanan. We're going to see an amazing Kiddush of the Chassam Sofer. I think I may have mentioned it in the past that Yom Kippur, Kiddush is DeOraisa. Did I mention this to you? Anybody remember that? I don't know. I don't remember what I mentioned it to. It's here in this country, so probably we didn't get to it yet. A Kiddush on Yom Kippur is DeOraisa. Why? On Yom Kippur? Why Yom Kippur is a Yontif? How do you greet someone on Yom Kippur? You say Good Yontif. All right, my Rebbe of Salvation told me, and he told the whole Sibur of our Talmidim that in Lita, where he was brought up, on Yom Kippur they said Good Shabbos. I should correct myself. They said Good Shabbos. You know, there were parts of Lita where they couldn't pronounce the shin. I knew a man in my youth, Mr. Zar, I still remember. He used to say Good Shabbos. And the Rav once gave a whole shir about Kedushas Yom Kippur. Is it basically a Kedusha Shabbos with a Hakolah that you're only Chayiv Kares? Or is it basically Kedushas Yontif with a Chumrah that you'll be Chayiv Kares? You know, where is, we have 6 Kruim on Yom Kippur. What do you say?
Shabbos.
Correct, Shabbos Shabboson. It sounds like Yom Kippur has a higher level of Kedusha than Shabbos. The highest level is when Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos. You have it, 2 for 1. You've got both Kedusha Shabbos and Kedusha Yom Kippur. You can't beat that. But the Chassam Sofer is of the opinion that Kiddush on Yom Kippur is DeOraisa. Very complicated Chassam Sofer. He says that we need a mitzvah that will make the Kedushas Hayom Nikeres. Nikeres means we have to declare publicly that this day is sanctified. But we don't have to do that on Yom Tov. Why? Because the mitzvah of Samachta b'chagecha, there ain't simcha el b'basa v'yayin. So at the time of the Mikdash, they ate kachim, and therefore on Yom Tov you don't need Kiddush. It's only the Rabban. On Shabbos, there is no mitzvah v'samachta. So on a DeOraisa level, there's no mitzvah chila. And therefore, the Kedusha is not nikeres. So we need Kiddush to declare today is Shabbos. On Yom Kippur, we don't eat. So the mitzvah of Simcha, if it at all applies on Yom Kippur, the Rambam says, Ein la Simcha Yisera, whatever it is, but there's no mitzvah chila, and therefore the Kiddush Hayom is Eina Nikeres. All we have is Lotas says and Shevi Altas says, and avoiding Malacha. Therefore, we need Kiddush to declare and make the Kiddush of Yom Kippur into a Kiddush Nikeres. Unbelievable Kiddush of the Chassam Sofer. It's almost together Darshin in time of the Krah. It's like he's delving into the reason for a mitzvah. And by the way, amongst the various proofs that Kiddush DeOraisa does not require Yayin, and you can be yotze the mitzvah of Kiddush without Yayin on a DeOraisa level against all the Rishonim who disagree, a great proof is from Yom Kippur. If you hold that Yom Kippur is a Kiddush DeOraisa, then vice versa, you prove from here that Kiddush DeOraisa does not require Yayin. No one's going to allow you to drink wine for Kiddush on Yom Kippur. What happens if you have a Yontif on Friday? Yontif on Friday. Interesting. Mr. Brewer raises this question. I think he's quoting somebody. Oh, it's also in a Magen Avraham. So he has only enough money for either a kos Kiddush for Yontif or a kos Kiddush for Shabbos. So you might say mitzvah bol yodcha or ein ma'avirin al mitzvahs, and he should use that kos yayin for Kiddush of Yontif. Says the Mishnah, no. He should save that kos for Shabbos. Why? Because meinichol Shabbos, leave it for Shabbos, shumin Torah, ubi Yontif yikadish al pas. So even though, if all things are equal on Yontif, if he has yayin, he would prefer yayin over pas for a variety of possible reasons, ain't shir al yayin and other reasons. But nevertheless, he has only one cup of wine. Leave it for Shabbos because Shabbos is DeOraisa and Kiddush on Yontif is the Rabbanan. Now again, if you hold that Kiddush DeOraisa requires yayin, then I understand this Mishnah Berurah. If I hold that all the Rishonim who say that Kiddush DeOraisa does not require Yayin, so the whole requirement of Yayin is the Rabbanan, and the same Rabbanan that required Yayin for Kiddush on Shabbos required Yayin for Kiddush on Yom Tov, but nevertheless, the entity and the kiyum of Kiddush on Shabbos is DeOraisa. Ikar Kiddush min Torah on Shabbos and not on Yom Tov. And the way we said it before, that the Mishnah Berurah really means that the Rabbanan are telling you how to fulfill the mitzvah DeOraisa, so that even though you could fulfill the mitzvah DeOraisa of Kiddush without Yayin, nevertheless, once the Rabbanan established Yayin, Yayin gets, so to speak, swallowed up into Kiddush DeOraisa, or shall we say, upgraded to the status of Kiddush DeOraisa. Mashen Kein Yontu, Kiddush is only Rabbanan. Ta'ad Khan, the Mishnah Berurah. Now we could add into the equation here the Dogel Mirvava. the Baal Hanod of Yehuda, who is upset with this Magen Avram. Why? Because if you accept the Magen Avram and he was Yotzei Tefillah, Kiddush DeOraisa and Tefillah, then you're going to have a problem if he gets home and he wants to make Kiddush and be Motzi his wife, and she didn't have a Ma'ariv. Her Chiyuv is DeOraisa, his Chiyuv is only D'Rabbanan. How can you make Kiddush from? So you may remember the Tshuva Me'ava, Fleshkis, who was a Talmud Muvak of the Nod Yehuda, and he toys with the possibility that when he recites tefillah in shul, he should have in mind not to be yotzei the mitzvah of Kiddush DeOraisa, so that his level of chiyuv will be equal to that of his wife, and they'll both be chayiv DeOraisa. So if we add the Tshuva Me'ava to this whole picture, we have a further reason why the Mishnah Berurah might have rejected the idea of being Yotzei Kiddush DeOraisa in Tefillah. Not a good idea. Again, if he has no Yayin, has no Pas, whole different story. And now at this point, I'm just looking at my clock just to time myself. Yeah, we have about 8 minutes. Let's go back to the beginning of the Kiddush. Now, in my edition, it starts on page Zion. Well, I have the old version, so I don't know. Where's the first page in your edition? I just don't want to get confused, I should have printed it out from the internet.
When you say the first page, what do you mean the first page?
When I mean the first page, mean the first Ma'ariv Makom. It should say, again, in my version, it says Arvei Psachim, etc., Kuf Vav Amid Aleph. On the bottom left, it says Zayin. Because, they count all these, these pages at the beginning, the title pages, so they... Do you have Psachim Kuf Vav?
This is the country. This is Chayveres
Beis. It's called Chiyuv
right.
Kiddush Al Yayin. I know that David confirmed that he sent it out on the. I don't know whether it's an email or whatever it is.
Yeah, I sent it last week.
So just if you could open it up, just for my own, communication with you, I want to know if it starts on page 9.
I see. So I can try to open it up.
See if you could open
David, can you resend it?
Sure. Oh, I sent it 2 ways. One is the link, and the other is the actual document. The send the document is 20 meg. It's gonna take a lot of time.
What date was that?
Last Thursday.
Thursday, which is the
16th. Like, right? 16th?
16th.
Thanks. Let me check my outbox. I'll tell you. What's the moment? I think it was 16th. Second.
So I'm going to, just because we're pressed for time, I'm going to continue. And I'm going to assume that either on page Zion or maybe it's on your page Ches, if there's a discrepancy, you'll find Arei Psachim Kuvav Hamid Aleph.
Yeah, it was 16th. Let me tell the link again, okay, to everybody?
All right.
Let it go faster, and I have it on Google Drive. It should still be there. Let me resend this whole thing right now, okay? Second.
I got enough trouble walking through Google, let alone driving through Google.
Ah.
All right.
Okay, I just sent it. Hopefully get it soon.
By the time you get it, we'll be ready for Kiddush on Friday night. That's the problem.
If I send a document, that would be true, but the link should go very quickly. It's very short.
All right.
Bobby, try the link. Let me know if it works or not. Okay.
I got it now.
Okay. Try it and see.
Thank you. I don't know where it went the last time.
Again, and what's the page number on the bottom?
Let me see.
After the pages of
Zion.
What?
Zion.
Good. So we're all on the same page. Zion.
Literally, yes.
Taner Rabbanan. Zochres Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho, Zochrei Ol HaYayin. What does that sound like to you? What's the status of Yayin? Is it DeOraisa or DeRabbanan?
DeOraisa.
Sounds like it's DeOraisa. Taner Rabbanan, Zochres Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho, the Bryce is quoting a pasuk, Zochrei Ol HaYayin.
Well, the Zochrei Ol HaYayin may only be an asmachta DeRabbanan to do on Yayin.
Could be. Yeah, but then again,
Zocher doesn't tell you it's Yayin.
No, I agree with you, but I'm just saying, we can always say everything is an asmachta. That's always our fallback position. But I'm just saying, when you read the Brisa, Tosfos is so upset about this. He says, "Where vushted? Where does it say in the pasuk Zachar es Yom Shabbos Hakach that you require yayin?" And Tosfos gives two answers, both are the same actually. He quotes two psukim in Tanakh to prove that the word Zachar refers to yayin. Pilei ployim. Maybe next time we read Amalek, we should take out a cup of wine because it says Zachar es asher asel cha Amalek. What are the two psukim? He starts with a pasuk in Hosea and Novi, and he ends with a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. In Hosea and Novi, it says Zichru ki yayin. Again, the print is a little bit small here. I think it says Lebinyan. 1 second, sorry. Levanon, I'm sorry, my mistake. Very bad mistake. I didn't have my... That's the one drawback of these contrasive. They come out very small. It's hard for the eyes. And it's no problem for me to take out a Gemara Pesachim, but anyway. So it says, Zichro ki yayin levanon, like the Lebanese wine. So you see that the word Zachar and the word yayin are part of a package deal. What does it say in Shir Hashirim? Nazkira dodecha miyayin. Again, Zechira and Yayin. V'hai Zechira, to fulfill this mitzvah of Zechira, Hainu Kiddush, Devayachulu lo matzinu ala kos el b'tfila. He says that if you're going to rely on Kiddush and Tefillah, there's no kos. And yet Zachreu means Zachreu Yayin. Again, there's a lot more to talk about on this page, but I just want to fast forward for a moment to Rashi, which you'll see on page Yud. I don't know how easy it is on the computer, but if you could fast forward for a moment to page Yud, which is Brachos Daf Chaf Amid Beis. The Gemara there is talking about Noshim, they're chayav in the Mitzva of Kiddush DeOraisa. And Rashi writes, you see the pointer over there, Kiddush hayom mitzvah seish hazman gromahi, Zocher es yom HaShabbos lekadsho, Zochreu al hayayin. So Bobby, is that also the smachta? Very hard. Very hard to assume that Rashi is referring to the smachta. He's quoting this brisa. It's a real yayin. But again, I'm just mentioning this up front. There are many Rishonim who say explicitly that Kiddush al yayin is DeOraisa. We're going to soon see that the Gemara Nazir, according to the Ritva, says that a Nazir who's enjoined from drinking wine, and that's going to be on your page, Ches, will drink the yayin of Kiddush. How could the mitzvah of yayin d'Rabbanan trump the mitzvah of yayin, or shall I say more precisely, the lotas of yayin regarding a nazir. Says the mitzvah, apparently yayin is DeOraisa. And we'll see it also in the Mefarish. Now, nobody knows exactly who the Mefarish is on Nazir, but whoever he is, he's a Rishon. And every word in the Mefarish is taken seriously. And the Mefarish in Nazir goes out of his way to say that Mushba v'omid me'ar Sinai applies to Yain of Kiddush. Me'ar Sinai, that's a DeOraisa. And the Mefarish says, Dichsiv zochres yom HaShabbos l'kadsheu zocher el yayin. The Mefarish is explaining why the Nazir will drink yayin of Kiddush. And that's because he's mushba v'omid me'ar Sinai.
So how are you yaitzi with tefillah then?
With what?
How can you be yaitzi with tefillah if the Chrei al yayin is yayin? Like
Well, Bobby, there was a part of the shir that you missed. I'm just going to repeat myself. The Mishnah Berurah says, Ulam, you remember the Ulam, Hakaf Beis, where he rejects the whole thing in the Magen Avram? In that Ulam, he says, V'yeshli tamim acherim, and he doesn't reveal his cards. So maybe you left for that point, but at that point we said that the tamim acherim are those Rishonim who require Yahin DeOraisa against the Magen Avram. The Magen Avram only makes sense if you assume that Yahin is the Rabbanan.
I'm asking a question to Magen Avram. How can the Magen Avram say this is a befer shegamara? How can the Magen Avram say that it's
because Tosfos quotes Rabbeinu Tam, who holds, if you remember, as we started tonight in the Mishnah Berurah, like the Rambam, that Kiddush al Yain is the Rabbanan, and Rabbeinu Tam says that Mushba v'yomi me'arsina you have to read with a question mark, bitmiyah.
Right.
And not only that, Rabbeinu Tam has one extra word in the Gemara in his gears that we don't have. V'chi mushpa v'yomi me'arsina. We don't have the word v'chi. So the Ritva didn't have the word v'chi in his Gemara. So mushpa v'yomi me'arsina is not bitmiyah, it's a statement. I always tell my Talmidim that our Gemaras don't have punctuation, although you can get a Gemara with punctuation, but, Steinsaltz and other Gemaras, even before Steinsaltz, but I would not recommend it, because once you punctuate a Gemara, you might make a big mistake. And whether or not Kiddush al Yayin is DeOraisa or not depends upon whether you put a question mark in the Gemara or an exclamation mark. Okay, Rabbosai, we'll stop here. But this was just a little bit of a taste of an introduction of the Yayin of Kiddush, a tasty wine. Do you gentlemen choose your wine, carefully for Kiddush?